Oh boy. Hey, I've been looking forward to this.
Same here, man.
How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Pretty good. I got to tell you, pretty good.
Right.
What crazy times.
Yeah, man. No
Crazy
kidding.
times we're living in. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
I remember
it's a lot of up and down over here. The things are getting better, then they get worse. It's yeah, I've come to really hate this phrase "new normal," but it's accurate, and it's
I think we first met at KBiz. I think actually where we first met faced, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago.
yeah. I believe I met Stefan first.
You
The
did.
first year, that was what, 2018. And then I met you face to face finally last year, unless I got my year screwed up, which is very
I
possible.
think you met him 19 and we met 2020. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be off.
Yeah,
It
no, you
happens all
might
the
be right.
time.
Hey, time is a weird construct these days.
It
So
is. It is.
we'll go with your version.
Meet somewhere in the middle. How, first of all, I mean, I have so many things to talk to you about and ask you about after all this time. But before I do,
Yeah, sure.
how are things in your life? Your wife, I think now you're married, JC?
Well, we would have been had
Or
COVID
you
not
were?
been a thing. We are still engaged. We are taking it in stride. We were supposed to get married September 1st in Greece. We had a very small group of very close friends and family coming with us, and we had a little island picked out, and we were going to do like kind of a week-long thing with our nearest and dearest. That did not happen. But the fun part about it is that instead of trying to reschedule it for another international destination, with the future being as uncertain as it is, we have gone ahead and decided to get married on our own property up in the Catskills next summer. I know we'll get
Nice.
into the build as we talk more, and it'll become more evident why I'm so excited about it.
Sure.
But with this whole project going on, and the idea that kind of like the culmination of this renovation up here is going to end with us getting married here, and then like that's kind of the first memory this house gets is kind of just, I don't know, really sweet and endearing to me, and I think it just has me that much more energized to do a kick-ass job on this renovation and, get everything done and know that memory of our wedding is going to be on this property forever. So that's where we're at with that.
That's a pretty amazing thing. And, it's, when you talk to people, things, how common people are in the way they approach things sort of come out very quickly. My wife, Sarah, and I had our engagement party on our country house property, an hour and a few minutes from Montreal, where we had more people, but that very at our house, my brothers and I did all the cooking. Like it was like
That's great.
huge barbecue bonfire for like 125 people. And like your plans were to go to Greece, we went to Costa Rica with 27 of our closest, and we got married on the beach there. So really those two experiences that you're having was what we did by design when COVID wasn't even a thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Greece was the initial thought because JC has so much family over there. We were hoping to include them. But I think it's interesting, like when life throws you the challenges that it does, how you react to them. And I will say that, the level of communication that we have and being able to talk through these things and keep everything in very good perspective, meaning like we count ourselves pretty fortunate, with the living environment we have and the space we have, not without the hard times. I mean, JC's business is going through a really difficult time. Obviously, with her being in the fitness industry, nobody can be in her studios. So, one of the 5 had to close permanently. We pivoted her to live stream and got her her community, re-energized in the digital space. But I guess all that is just to say that, like, I really appreciate the level of communication we have together and taking everything in stride and, still being excited for what's to come with respect to the wedding and whatnot, and just kind of pivoting the plans, such is life.
That's it. again, how similar. My wife is also in the fitness industry. She is a partner in
Crazy.
four yoga studios in Montreal, and going through the
Wow.
same need to, close physical, go to virtual.
Sure.
What does it mean? So probably some very similar overlaps in our lives. Really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Ryan, are you as nerdy as I am? Because I literally had enough
Definitely
wires
not.
and cables in my office to hook up her live stream in the garage. So it was pretty funny.
It took two people in my office to help me figure out how to use this mic. So I'm going to answer that question with no.
Okay.
But luckily, she's much better at it than I am. And we have a almost 15-year-old son who's like, no, Mom, you're doing this. And 30 seconds later, it looks like.
Listen, if you got a 15-year-old, you got tech support built in. So
let me tell you.
That's great.
So I know you. We've done work together. We've done projects together. But
right.
I want to take it back a step and get to hear a little bit about your story. If someone were reading the footnotes or the executive summary, here's this guy, Anthony, goes to school in Boston, sets up a web business after that, then goes to work with his dad in more of contracting, ends up on HGTV with his cousin and best friend, ends up working on projects with Ellen, marries or is about to marry a former Rockette, has his own internet channel with more things. How does this, tell me about this, tell me the story, tell me this journey. I want to hear it from you.
The way you laid it out made it sound like I've done a whole bunch of shit in my life. And it's pretty cool to hear it come out of somebody else's mouth. They
offered me, I could have been like the backup to Ed McMahon on The Tonight Show, introducing the guests, but I decided to live in Montreal and make cabinets instead.
Well, listen, I for one am happy you chose the latter, because I am a massive fan, as you already know. You guys do just such a killer job. So the only thing I would adjust from what you said is I actually started my web design business when I was in college. I had gotten a partial scholarship, or financial aid rather. I was not an academic. I had gotten partial financial aid, and that came with a job at the student center at about $8 an hour. Well, you know me well enough to know that I don't sit in a chair well for very long. The end of that first shift, I was like, I'm never going back there. I got to figure out something else. And I literally taught myself how to design websites in the days of like Front Page and Adobe Dreamweaver. And I hacked around with that stuff. And that is, and I only concentrate here because that is where I discovered my creative side. For those that don't know, I am a self-taught designer. Contracting, I learned a lot from my father and from his father. We have a lot of different family, aunts and uncles. Well, not aunts, uncles in the construction business. So finding that creative side through web design kind of opened up the other side of my brain. And as I graduated college and then started working for my father in his import-export business at the time, when he was looking at buying a brownstone in Hoboken, kind of to do a renovation and flip in early 2004, I really gravitated toward it right away. I've always liked working with my hands. I always worked with my father on various construction projects growing up, whether it was an extension or him helping a friend manage a project or something. But I've always liked using both sides of my brains. I like the mental problem solving, but I like the physical work of construction and being on site and doing things with my hands. So there was a very tangible aspect to the work in that regard where you just got to see your progress every day. So as we went through that first project together and I started making these design choices, not really, I guess fully understanding the process at that point, but realizing that, as I saw potential buyers coming through the space and them falling in love with the decisions that I had made, I was like, oh, maybe I'm okay at this, and you start to gain a little confidence. And then the next project, you want to push a little further, make certain adjustments. You utilize what you learned on the first project, and so on and so on. And the snowball kind of built from there. By the time we got to our third project, John was working with us at the time by then. And the New York Times had done an article on one of the buildings we had restored and gotten a bunch of recognition for it. And then, like you said, HGTV came knocking. They asked if we could build a kitchen in 3 weeks. And John actually answered that phone call. I said, just tell them whatever they want to hear, bro. We'll figure it out once we're on TV.
Yep.
And kind of the rest is history from there. You guys got to watch the rest of it on screen.
We did. And it's what I note is interesting, when you hear the notion and the term flipping,
Yep.
it often has I don't want to if it's a negative necessarily, but sometimes it has a connotation that can be, it seems to me from watching your work, and I don't know about the first projects back in 2004, obviously, but
sure.
Being part of the build and on your new Stonehouse project, it seems like you only put your time into things that are soulful.
Yeah.
It looks like you are very selective and discerning, and it's not just, can I flip this on a spreadsheet, but is it going to be something I can add meaningful value to the story or soul of the physical place?
Yeah, I
capture that in watching you. Each decision is important, and
I appreciate that comment more than you know. I have to really credit my father with a lot of that from my early days. My dad went to college for 2 years at the University of Florence. He had an Italian minor when he was in college. And he loved it so much that he wound up staying and got a job there, made friends there that are friends to his best friend, my godfather, Johnny, is an artist in Florence, a dear friend to this day. And I got a love of Italian architecture, and I got a love of old buildings that, just need to be treated well, and they will last forever. Old on this side of the pond is not old. We're babies over here,
Yeah.
So,
yep.
I really love restoring old facades, and then on the interior, the interior is a very personal approach, but no less quality. Just the firehouse, for example, built in 1896, iron ore brick, painstakingly restored 4 different colors of brick mortar so that everything was period correct. Got the building on the National Historic Register, so it's protected forever. The inside is a mix of old and new. I very much gravitate toward modern Italian kitchens. I like mixing that with, old existing interior brick. Mid-century modern furniture helps blur the lines between the old and new and soften some of those otherwise more linear transitions. But yeah, the quality and the and the history of structures is something I really, really love. And I do agree with you that flipping has a negative connotation, and I think it's deserved. I think people who, take their time with projects are either restoring a home or they're redeveloping a home, but flipping very much has the, how fast can I get this done? How cheaply?
Yep.
And that's not a knock on anybody who flips anything. It's just the term itself has that definition, at least to me. So I try my best not to use that in my work.
Yeah. And I agree. And I say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but you can put that in the same thing as, I buy a stock low and I sell it at a profit and I keep the difference and I'm in and I'm out, and it's transactional. And I just note that I don't know if there's a term for flipping the way you have done it, because I wonder often at the end, is it almost hard to part with when so much care and attention? We recently got a puppy late August. I surprised my wife and my kids with a yellow lab, and as I was driving home from Toronto, which is where the breeder was, I asked her, is it really hard when you have, you care for these puppies for 8, 10, 12 weeks, and then someone sort of drives off, and is it hard? And she said, you know what, from the moment they're born, they're not mine. I'm watching over them for somebody else. And she had that very holistic view of her role in it, which I thought was really interesting. And I imagine for someone who puts the story and the care into what you do, it's maybe you trust the process that what you have done will be appreciated by the person who buys it, and will sort of see what went into it if you trust the process.
Yeah, I mean, in the large majority, we have been fortunate in that respect. I mean, you always have the nightmare buyer story or whatever, but
Sure.
you know, there's that's one in 10, you know, 1 in 100 have been that way. But yeah, I think you got it. You got it right. Most people see it, and that's what draws them to it in the first place. And then there's an inherent appreciation for that level of work and that age of building that the person has a lot aligned with you inherently. And it makes for a really nice transaction because you feel like you're passing this piece of history on for them to now take care of. And it's fun to think about it that way.
It is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Leads me into an interesting, I'll share a very brief story with you because it ties, I think, a lot into some of your experience. In 2014, Stefan and I were still in the original 400 square foot urban bonfire shop. We were starting to do kitchens custom locally, and an old acquaintance of mine was involved in television production, and basically pitched a show to a production or to a producer to create a outdoor space activation style show with me and 2 twin brothers in Toronto as the hosts. And they were kind of the more traditional landscape stone sort of guys, and we were the outdoor kitchen specialists coming in. And Stefan and I put a demo kitchen on a trailer. We drove it to Toronto with our truck, set it up on camera, the whole thing. And at the end, we saw this pilot that was made, and the pilot wasn't picked up. Yeah. And I was so happy that it wasn't, because it was such a departure from me as a person, and everything sort of being, scripted, needing to hide this logo, needing to come at this angle, needing to. And I acknowledge how important reality TV and shows like what you've done and others, how much they've contributed to the average consumer's ability to now understand and appreciate design and construction way more than they would have 10 years ago. Compounded that with House and Pinterest and all these other amazing tools that the average person now has.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. It was too, they wanted me to be a character. They didn't want me to be me.
Yeah, go ahead, finish. I have plenty to say on this.
And I want to hear this because your experience in terms of going into a show, not only with a family member, your cousin, but my understanding is your best friend. Yeah. And you made this into a hit show and a huge experience, which I gather was very positive for you in your career. So tell me about what that was like and the story on it.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll give you the spoiler up front. It's both positive and negative. The way it started was very positive. And I think a lot of that is like, John and I are very much ourselves. I don't know if I could act if I was asked to. So it was a lot of fun getting to show off the things that we did. Being able to be recognized for the thing that you're most passionate about is amazing. Like there are reality shows that are just, people arguing, fighting, whatever, whether it's Housewives or Kardashians or stuff like that. Yep. And, it's entertainment, I guess, to some, to a lot, but to me, I always looked at it and I was like, I would never want to be recognized just because I was on television. Like that's not of any interest to me. Mm-hmm. But when somebody stops you in an airport or a hardware store and was like, literally just tells you the episode start to finish and how much they love this particular kitchen or this build, or, asking you questions on how you came up with something, like it was always such a point of pride for me. It was so cool because who would have ever thought this guy from, Jersey City, New Jersey would have been able to share his designs with that many people. And it was people were always so kind and so positive about that, that it really was very much a positive experience from that perspective. The brand stuff and the network stuff was very much not a positive experience. The production, so most people don't understand that a production company makes a television show for a network, and it's kind of a layer of insulation for that network, liability, BS, and all that. The production company was great. The guy's one of my best friends to this day. Matter of fact, Nick is the guy who edits and does the graphics and helps me shoot the build. So that's how close we are. He was my first phone call when I came up with this idea. But I very distinctly remember at some point midway through the HGTV stuff, a network executive coming to us and being like, well, now, Anthony, you don't like the color of the house, and John, you do like the color of the house. And I was like, no, but I do like the color of the house. They're like, yeah, well, we need a little more drama here. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. And they're like, well, you have to do it. So literally the first time we did it, I was like, oh no, John, I really don't like the color of the house. And they're like, you have to do this the right way. Like, you're contractually obligated. And I got stuck doing it and felt like absolute shit about it. And was not. And then the episode airs and it's like, oh, Anthony, I thought you would have liked that color house or something. And then it feels so disingenuous. And that was kind of like the beginning of where things went downhill from a network perspective. The other comment that I would make in that regard is I do agree with you that these shows, HGTV as a whole, have really pushed people in the sense of design ideas and thoughts, Pinterest as well. But when you talk about somebody like a house and something like what I'm trying to do with the Build TV, I give that a lot more credence because there's a level of education there. I don't think there's anything wrong with ideas. I think it's great. Oh man, that's such a cool backsplash. That's amazing. But they also have people believing they can do that in 3 days for $1.87. And, things cost money and they take time. And not only that, there's a lot more that goes into these projects from a homeowner's perspective than any television show would ever have you believe.
For sure.
And it's something that is really near and dear to me at this point, and why I started the Build TV and why I'm self-funding it and why I'm working with guys like you, because I want to educate people not only around what their responsibilities are and the right way to plan, but also around good quality products and, showing folks what I'm willing to put in my own home and the reasons why I'm doing that.
Well, it's an interesting thing that you bring up, because I have to imagine that while obviously being on HGTV or any type of network show, that gives huge eyeballs and distribution, right? But being on your own gives it true authenticity, and you can you never have to play a character. You can just be you, and that's really the nice thing about self-producing and self-funding and all the things that you already do. Yeah,
100%. And beyond that too, Ryan. It's not only the character part, but I get to decide what goes on screen. Meaning, education can be fun too. I mean, I can't tell you how many times through my career when it was on HGTV, like I'd explain this scene of like what we were doing, whether it was a backsplash or a light fixture or a live edge desk or whatever it was. And all you see is a time lapse of me doing something and then we're on to the next pretty thing. So, it's fun to be able to make sure that the education part of it makes the screen. You break it down in ways that are easier to understand and that are still fun and engaging. And that's what's really been the most fun part of it to me.
It's interesting you say that, because Stefan and I made a very premeditated decision early on that we were going to balance the sharing the end product, the beautiful pictures and projects and all those things, but we were also going to share the journey. And we were not going to hide the small shop, the first few kitchens, the hell that we went through, like the moving factories on, on March 17th this year of all dates, that was our date to move our factory. Like, we were going to basically say we're going to share the journey with our audience. And I think that is how real brands are made, because they do authentic storytelling and they share their journey with the consumer. Because I don't think anyone believes that when they look at a beautiful finished picture of something, that there wasn't flaw and error and misdirection and pivot necessary to get there. Yep. I just think that reminding people that we, just like you and whatever you do, make mistakes, correct, do things better, figure things out, go through hell. I think that's a very important part.
Absolutely. I feel like it empowers people, because when you see someone you admire never make a mistake or think that they never make a mistake, it almost gives you pause to try it yourself, because you don't want to make a mistake. And you're like, well, they've been doing this for so long, how could I possibly? So when I have an episode come out, or I have a shit fit on the vlog because something went totally sideways on me, I think that's really beneficial for people to see, because you're never going to learn anything new if you don't try. And even if you have been doing it for 20 plus years, you still screw things up. Sometimes you don't have the right tool. Sometimes a delivery. I shot the final episode of The Build in the living room, the beauties in the living room, without my fireplace. The fireplace was a 12-week lead time. It didn't come in for 28 weeks. But, at the end of the day, I shot like a little thing on my iPhone that it had arrived. I carried it upstairs with a GoPro head mount, and my contractor came over and helped me, install it, the two of us. And I sent that footage over to Nick, and we put it in at the end of the episode. We did not get rid of all the trials and tribulations. We kept that and did like a little thing at the end where you thought the episode was over, and then it was like, wait, the fireplace is here. So it's the long-winded way of saying I totally agree with you, and people need to see mistakes so that they're encouraged to make their own on their path to success.
I was doing a virtual training last week with one of our oldest and one of the best dealers that we have out of LA, called Snyder Diamond. 3 locations. Okay. They've really been an incredible part of our company and our growth. And we were training and talking to them about their builder division, who work with large scale builders, contractors, multi-unit developers, that type of thing. And we were talking about Urban Bonfire's investment in original content, and how you're not going to see us advertising in these magazines. You're not going to see us doing the traditional sort of things that everybody else does. You're going to hear us doing podcasts or this. And I, in that moment, showed a clip of The Build. I said, this is the type of content we are investing in. You will notice that it is not the pretty picture at the end. This is a guy in New Jersey installing in the month of November, and you're seeing it happen and you're seeing it come together. And that, it's not, we are by design showing that this product is rugged in the context of, it doesn't only, that's how we gain respect from a builder, for example. So again, I am one who firmly believes in showing a really broad spectrum of story, even the not pretty parts, because I think that is what makes it real. It's what makes people interested in watching cooking shows, is watching them clean the guts and chop the garlic. Like, it's exactly the shit, right? But that's exactly what makes the whole thing come together.
That's why one of my favorite hashtags to use is love the process, because if you don't love getting there, I think you're talking about soul earlier, like the soul of a building and the soul that I put into my projects, that comes from loving what you're doing while you're doing it. It's like, I don't know a good example, but like, if everything just comes easy, there's so much less appreciation. If you can just write a check and have your perfect home, I'm sure you appreciate it and you move in there and it's great and you start to build memories with your family. But if you're working in it and you you're living through the trials and tribulations. I mean, I slept in a camping hammock in a gutted house while I renovated this barn so that I had a bed to sleep in when I renovated the house. Like, those are stories I'm going to be able to tell forever. And, I think it lends a lot to the overall enjoyment, at least that I gain from my home, because all of those memories are baked into this structure now.
Yep, it's absolutely right. So it's a great segue. You did the build. I think it was really well done, and we'll put the links in the. See, I'm not a tech guy, but I know whoever is going to do this will make sure that all the links are properly there. I've watched every one of your episodes. I think that I think it's really, really well done, and I'm not saying that to blow sunshine up your ass. It feels authentic. It doesn't feel salesy, and it doesn't feel like there is one example of something that you would be using if someone was just giving it to you for product placement. It didn't feel like that. It felt very much like you were saying, even if I am paying full price for each one of these things, it's still what I buy. Because I believe in that decision. And that very, very much came through in the quality of your engagement.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you. I'm fortunate that I guess stubborn would be a good word, but I'm fairly stubborn. And like I was saying about the fake argument we had to have for one of our episodes, they didn't really try that too many more times with me, because they knew I was going to fight them every step of the way on that. And it goes to your reputation, and as much as authenticity can be overused at times, it is accurate. And it's something that you can't get back once you F it up. I will never forget early days of television. This agent who we no longer work with, because our current agent is awesome and he would never bring us something like this. But this guy was like, "Hey, I got this great deal for you, this stick-on countertop company. You and your cousin are going to make X dollars each. And, it's great." I mean, when I tell you we needed the money at that point, it was like 2009. I still had a $7 million loan out on a building. The real estate market had fallen off the cliff. Like, I needed that payday. And we said no, because who wants to believe a guy who's going to put something like that in their home? So again, the long way of saying that, like, I've always been very discerning when it comes to product. And I think because of that, folks like yourselves and all the other brand partners, for that matter, that were involved in this show, they understood that. So I was able to put all of my first choice products in this house, meaning I didn't have to compromise and tell somebody, well, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't get the person on board for the show. Yep. So it's none of that. And it feels good. It feels good to know that I built a solid reputation over a long time, that people have faith in me to not only use the product the right way, but to know that I'm going to put this show out that I said I was going to put out and deliver on the content front too. As you know, from seeing behind the curtain, it's not a little bit of work.
It's not a little, it's a lot. Yeah. And it is a ton of work to do. But it shows when someone takes the time and the care and it's handled well. That's the difference between, quality content and content that is just not, again, not that there's anything wrong with it, just it's not at the same level of something that you're putting out. So,
but and it's great too, because I have a lot of friends, I'm 42 now. I have a lot of friends obviously right in my age range. And because so many of them are either buying a home or a second home or renovating a home, they're all watching my show as it pops up on IGTV or Facebook or YouTube. And without fail, every week after a new episode comes out and I'm focused on something else, I'll get a text message. And my friends, Mike and Dana, in Central Jersey, He's like, hey man, you think we could have dinner? I want to come up and see your outdoor kitchen. I really want to get my hands on it. We're going to redo the outdoor kitchen. And if that's what you put in your home, I know I need to take a look at it, you know? So like when you get comments like that from friends, like it feels really good.
Well, at least something I really wanted to ask you, because you started doing this. I know you've gone through, you know, doing it, you and your dad, HGTV, then for yourself and in the build.
Yep.
But you've basically been doing this now, let's back of napkin, a little over 15 years. What I'd like to ask you is this. Have you seen a change in consumer behavior, in mindfulness, in thinking about the outdoors? I'm not even talking about the kitchen. I'm talking about the general way that people perceive outdoor space.
Oh, big time.
Tell me how you've seen evolve, and you know, even prior to COVID, what are you seeing as what people are thinking about as it relates to the indoor-outdoor relationship?
So I think when I really started seeing the shift was when a lot of these accordion style door systems came out. Anderson, I mean, everybody has them now. Early days, we had done La Cantina doors. We had done a few of those systems. Anderson has the multi-glide now. I mean, like I said, everybody's got them. But the point is, because that opening was so much wider, you were really able to blur the lines between indoors and out. And I think that was, at least in my eyes, was really a catalyst for like focusing on the outdoors a lot more. It was not so much a disconnected space anymore. Now you could, for argument's sake, open up an entire wall and transition to your outside much more seamlessly. And when that becomes a reality for you, well, now you need your aesthetics to really work together indoors and out. How do I do that? Holy shit, I got all this new product I got to research. Is there even stuff out there for it? And then you start to see more and more things being developed. And I don't know necessarily timing wise that I'm accurate. You know, maybe your guys' kitchens were out long before these multi-glide doors and accordion doors. But my point is that because of those doors and because the indoors can see the outdoors and the outdoors can see the indoors, people wanted to level up everything else that went around that outdoor area to really match what was inside. And that was the big catalyst.
I think that's one of the reasons why, and you brought it up, and fundamentally, again, when we do training, the idea of nano walls, they didn't really exist so much, you know, and
Ryan, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you hit it. So nano wall, that was the big thing. Nano wall was so expensive that it was very hard for any so when consumer facing products started to come out that had that same look, that's right. NanoWall was the first, but they are Jesus. That's a level of.
But I mean, regardless of what it is, regardless of what it is, you know, we didn't just have one glass door or a patio door, and that was the connective visual. Now it's, you put it perfectly. There is seamless visual integration, and as a result, the design professional cares a lot more. Where the designer's role used to sort of stop at the patio door, now they're saying, holy shit, if I don't put my mark on this whole thing, someone's going to walk in and see complete disconnect when they hit that glass wall, and the design and the aesthetic that I've wanted for my client, a half or a third of it is in someone else's hands.
That's right.
I think that's making people who didn't necessarily want to do the outdoors 10 or 15 years ago say, I need to do it for continuity of design, certainly need to do it for economics. Why am I leaving basically an entire other room on the table or to somebody else?
Yeah, well, and I think too, you know, at a certain point, it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, meaning like now that these larger door systems are ubiquitous, and they, for example, have been on HGTV so much. I mean, we've done glass garage doors. We've done, you know, there's a million different ways to do them now. And through that, we have all, as an industry, educated homeowners around what is now possible. that also means that buyers now have a level of expectation for something like that, or just a pure want for something like that. And then that snowball just keeps getting bigger and that envelope keeps getting pushed. And, I think we're just in an awesome space for outdoor right now because there's so much exciting stuff.
I was doing a similar episode a few weeks ago with an amazing architect out of Malibu. And it dawned on me as I was speaking to him that I said, what's really interesting? I feel like the outdoor space for most people is kind of like the executive summary of their home. Because in your home, you've got bedroom, living room, kitchen, dining room, bathroom, other.
Yep.
And the outdoors is typically, I'm going to take a little bit of lounge and a little bit of kitchen and a little bit of dining and a little bit of flower.
That's right.
And a little bit of outdoor shower. And I can actually, in a small footprint, create the almost hotel room-like experience that gives me really cool design, but hits all those different pieces that I want. So it really becomes almost like the index to because it's how they can pick and choose the very best experiences from indoor and bring it together. Yeah. So I think it's I think it's super interesting. And I think you're right. I really believe we're still in the infancy of this whole thing.
Well, and to that point of being in the infancy, I think this entire pandemic has really pushed the envelope on outdoor specifically. And I say that because social distancing was not in my vocabulary 8 months ago, right? So we've got to stay away from most people, and yet we still want to be able to enjoy the outside, but we're home so much more. So you extrapolate all this, it's to say well, why don't I make a badass space at my house so that I can enjoy that? And my one or two quarantine friends that, come over on a regular basis, we can enjoy this little area together. And I think that has people thinking about it a lot more now.
Well, and to that point, people are thinking about that now in terms of secondary home or country home removed from the city. Yep. For most of the last 20 years, houses on my lake. I mean, my late father and my mom bought our little house in 1980.
Wow.
I was 6 years old. And for the last almost 20 years, without exaggeration, you couldn't give away houses. It was really hard to sell a country house because people didn't want the expense. A lot of people had moved out of Montreal to the States, Europe, Toronto, things like that. Sure. And this summer, people were renting them out and selling them like it went like this.
The Catskills sound very similar to your lake community.
That's exactly the lead into tell me about. It seems like the timing is almost poetic. Tell me about the Stonehouse project and going from the build to that, and tell me how this gem is working on.
So the Stonehouse project, oh my goodness, this house. So JC and I kind of been looking on and off for about 2 years up here in the Catskills. I've been coming up here a decade. Her family's from up this way. And we both love the mountains, love the outdoors. Our dog loves to go hiking, the whole nine. And we were just looking for that thing, that intangible, that, again, coming back to soul, looking for that. And stumbling around on Zillow one day, I thought I had clicked every damn pin that website had to offer. I hit this one, and this gorgeous stone farmhouse from the 1960s is just sitting there staring at me. And when I clicked into the photos, the interior of the house had been half demolished. So I look at days on market. It's been on the market for 2 years. I'm like, how have I never seen this? Anyway, we came up and scheduled a real estate agent, walk through the house, and we knew immediately. And the days on market were such that I could be aggressive in my negotiations. We fortunately got a really good deal on it, and more fortunately, and unbeknownst to us, did this a month and a half before the pandemic hit. And since then, I mean, you can't get, the prices have gone up 20% up here. And there's literally nothing on the market because anytime something comes on market, it is sold in 24 to 48 hours up here. It's pretty crazy. But we are tucked away in a little valley in between a couple of mountains. We're on 3.9 acres, and there's a little 600 square foot barn that's right next to the house that I'm sitting in right now.
Beautiful.
And believe it or not, actually, my contractor starts tomorrow. Lumber delivery is 7 a.m. I got 2 massive LVLs coming.
Wow.
One to open up from the entry to the kitchen dining, and then another for a massive header that is going to be, spoiler, for the massive door that's going to lead out to a patio, because we want to blur those lines very much between the indoors and outdoors. So I spec'd in this really cool double sliding door from Renewal by Andersen. It's 16 feet of glass, and it'll wind up with an 8-foot opening. Obviously, 2 fixed panels, 2 sliding panels.
Amazing.
And then I might be doing a kitchen out there. No, I'm just kidding.
I think we'll do it.
We've got some design work to do together, but I've got some initial thoughts. I always know, though, with you guys, I don't like to go too far with my design, because I am a firm believer that nobody knows their product better than the people who make it. And you guys have such a great design staff there that I'm always willing to listen to an idea or a thought. So like, I have a basic layout done, more from a dimensionality standpoint, knowing like pizza oven's got to fit here, grill's got to fit here, sink's got to fit here, refrigerator drawers. Okay. There's enough countertop space. Let Ryan and Stefan and the team tell me what they've got cracking, if they've got something new. For example, I remember seeing you at KBIS last year, and I was like, what's with these integrated LEDs? And you're like, yeah, we just came out with them. I lost my mind. I think I stayed at the booth an extra half an hour. So yeah, I'm excited to dive into the design from
as are we
for this new kitchen.
As are we. I think it's going to be a really fun one. And if the renderings never do a finished project justice, but if it's anything like the rendering plan you sent me, I think it's going to be just a really, really special place for you and your wife. It's going to be awesome.
And what I'm hoping to do is, with the amount of space we have up here, I'd love to do a proper fireside chat next to the fire once this house is done in like the May-June timeframe.
Well, I'll tell you, nothing would make me happier that May, June we can travel and I can come down and maybe even be with you for the inaugural cook. So that would be an awful lot of fun for sure.
It sure would, man. Yeah, I would love to do that. Let's keep that out in the distance a little bit, but yes, certainly working towards it. I think it would be fun. I think it would also be fun, maybe we grab a couple of the other guys. I mean, I'm working with Techo Block for the patio, ECS appliances for the grill stuff, for the grill, the fridge, and the sink. Who else is that? Well, Renewal by Andersen, obviously, Pollywood with the furniture, and like, I think it would be super fun to maybe do like a round table with everybody and see how everybody's products interact together and how they all complement each other.
I think that is I think that's a superb idea. I'd love to be part of that. I think that'd be great because
I guess we'll be forced to cook, so that'll be all right.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We can fire up the pizza oven and we can.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other one. We'll invite the Gosney folks as well because their pizza oven is really, really special. So, we'll get a whole bunch of folks together in the industry and have a proper fireside chat around the fire.
Let us hope that is something that can happen by spring. That would be amazing as a goal. Anthony, always a pleasure, and wish you and your fiance continued health and safety. And may this construction go as smoothly as construction can.
I appreciate you putting it that way, man. Same to you and yours. I really appreciate the time. This is super fun. Again, you guys just do such an awesome job.
Thanks.
I could not be happier that I discovered your products and have just, started this great relationship with you guys. So look forward to doing another one of these. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
You too, brother. Be well.
All right.